Episode 1 of the JP Saga. Cancel culture is awesome. Sometimes. Now, I know what you must be thinking. What in the hell do you mean that cancel culture is awesome? Cancel culture is everything that's wrong with America, with the world, and even with the future colonies of Mars. Well, I can actually empirically prove that cancel culture is awesome. Sometimes, with just two simple words. Two irrefutable words that will prove to you beyond a shadow of a doubt that cancel culture is in fact awesome. Sometimes. Ready? Here goes. Bill Cosby. Did you catch that? Did that go too fast for you? Let me try it again. Bill Cosby. Ready for another two-word refutation? Woody Allen. How about one more? I got one more if you want it. Here goes. O.J. Simpson. Okay, that's more like 2.5 words, and I kind of said the Simpson part kind of weird. But still, my point remains. These are people whose careers are over forever. Canceled, if you will. And we won't hear a melancholic violin chord, nor will we see a single tear shed on their behalf. Now, why is that? Well, maybe it's because they're god-awful human beings who have done god-awful things, and they deserve every god-awful consequence that's coming to them. Now, I can already hear the bad faith arguments. Cosby isn't canceled. He's in prison. You can't be canceled if you're in prison. Well, his legacy is certainly ruined beyond repair, and when he gets out, do you honestly think he'll be able to resurrect the Cosby Show like some puddin'-pop-huckin' necromancer or something? Do you think he's going to be able to convince Jello to take him back? Let me answer that for you with a resounding hell no. He's canceled, and that's a good thing. Being a celebrity is a position of unbelievable wealth and privilege, and that should come with some level of responsibility. We shouldn't give those positions to people who are inherently terrible human beings. That's why we started canceling people to begin with, and it's been done since time immemorial. Why should we be forced to hold up people who say and do things that are diametrically opposed to the values of our society, that make our world a worse place to live? Do you really want to live in a world where the Jello company is forced to keep Cosby on the payroll with some kind of bajillion-dollar contract, and he can use that money to invest in some kind of undetectable super roofie technology? No. The same goes for Woody and the Juice. That actually sounds like kind of a cool show. But it's never going to happen. You know why? Because they're freaking canceled. Woody and the Juice will never happen because they're canceled. Otherwise, who knows? Anyways, the reason I bring these people up is because they prove without a shadow of a doubt that cancel culture is justified at some point, and cancel culture should exist in some form and to some extent. Now, the main problem we run into is we got to figure out where that line is. So does that make sense? We good? We satisfied? Of course not. I already anticipate another bad faith argument. Well, Cosby and OJ are actual convicted criminals. Maybe it's okay to cancel them, but that's way different than canceling people just because of their opinion. Canceling people for their political opinions is wrong. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, my hypothetical hypocritical friend. Let me introduce you to some of my own canceled friends. Did you really think I wouldn't come without backup? Let me tell you a little story about a band called the Dixie Chicks. The Dixie Chicks, now known as the Chicks, were an American country band that criticized the war in Iraq and George Bush in 2003. Now, of course, conservatives hate cancel culture, right? They respect differences of opinion, and they kept supporting their music, right? Agree to disagree and all that. Wrong. Dead effing wrong. To quote Wikipedia, the Dixie Chicks were blacklisted by thousands of country radio stations. The band members received death threats, and the backlash damaged the sales of their music and concert tickets. They were seen as traitorous, and their single, Landslide, went from number 10 to number 43 in the span of a week. On May 6th of that year, A Colorado radio station, KKCS, suspended 2 DJs for even playing their music. And in Alabama, they dropped the Dixie Chicks after 250 listeners called on a single day to complain about their comments. There was protesters that used tractors to run over their CDs. Lipton canceled its promotional contract with Dixie Chicks, and even their tour bus driver resigned. So these girls were thoroughly canceled, and it took a better part of the decade to get their careers back on track. And here's the other thing. They apologized. Don't conservatives always say that if you apologize, everything should be forgiven? Well, of course, that didn't do any effing good. Now, surely you must be wondering, what was it that the Dixie Chicks said that made people so angry? Well, brace yourself, kiddos. I may need to put a parental advisory warning here because I'm about to share, their egregious, horrible, terrible remarks. So here goes. This is the comment that got the Dixie Chicks canceled. Just so you know, we're on the good side with y'all. We do not want this war, this violence, and we're ashamed that the President of the United States is from Texas. Wow, holy for holies, that is by far, totally, and 100% right. Yeah, let's go over that again because I feel that gets glossed over a lot. The Dixie Chicks were 100% right to be against the war in Iraq. There were no weapons of mass destruction. Even Trump and the majority of the Republican Party recognized that by 2016. Even Jeff Bush did it. Here, let's look at this quick clip.
Wolf Blitzer talking about President George W. Bush's conduct of the war. You said you were surprised that Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi didn't try to impeach him. You said, quote, which personally I think would have been a wonderful thing.
Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake, all right? Now, you can take it any way you want, and it took Jeb Bush, if you remember at the beginning of his announcement, when he announced for president, took him 5 days. He went back. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. Took him 5 days before his people told him what to say, and he ultimately said it was a mistake. The war in Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. Iran is taking over Iraq with the second largest oil reserves in the world. Obviously, it was a mistake.
So
George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty. I want to tell you, they lied.
Okay.
They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none.
So, yeah. Did conservatives ever apologize to them? Did they ever say, yeah, you were right about the war in Iraq? Leftists, Dixie Chicks? No. They just move on, pretended they were right all along, and ignored it just like they always do. They're incapable of admitting that they're wrong. And, do I really need to go down the list of Kaepernick and Al Franken or them boycotting NASCAR over the Confederate flag? I can run down the list. I have more, okay? But I don't see the point, okay? I really don't. It's just like what I said before. It's about where is that line? Cancel culture should exist to some degree. People should get canceled. If Hitler comes back from the dead as a zombie, we should cancel him too, right? Well, who knows? If you're a conservative, you might not agree. But here's my point, okay? Whenever conservatives are in charge of that line, they're even more egregious than the liberals. Go look at the McCarthy era where they blackballed people just for being communists or leftists or being under suspicion of being a communist, okay? That's literally doing it because of your political affiliation. So why shouldn't we do the same thing to fascists? Why shouldn't we do the same thing to people who spread misinformation and QAnon conspiracy theories? Why not? You explain to me. You can literally make the argument that people who are spreading COVID misinformation are getting people killed. They're making people's lives worse. When you spread misinformation about transgender people, you're making a group of people's lives worse. If that doesn't deserve cancellation, what does? And I'm going to go ahead and address the elephant in the room. That elephant being one Gina Carano. She's the reason why cancel culture is front and center to the political debate right now. And, she posted a bit of a tweet, And in that tweet, she lamented that conservatives are being treated unfairly. They're getting hatred and all this stuff, just because they may have supported a tiny bit of an insurrection, a tiny bit of a itty bitty little like traitorous, action where they tried to overturn the democratically elected president in favor of a dictator. I don't know why anybody would be upset about that personally. I mean, what's the big D, But yeah, that didn't rub people the right way, especially when when you compare yourself as, to Jews in the run up to the Holocaust for being a conservative and, doing that stuff and, supporting that fun seditionist stuff that happened. So anyways, she got fired. She had been given multiple warnings. She previously, made fun of transgender pronouns and did other problematic stuff. I think she spread some QAnon misinformation. Yada, yada, yada. Who cares, right? It's all in good fun. She got fired, and of course the right-wing media went ballistic. And the most common argument I've heard is that Pedro Pascal, Mando himself, he did also post a meme comparing current situations with the Holocaust. Specifically, he compared what was going on at the border, with child separation, forced abortions, and, conservatives, they love to nitpick. They're like, well, the picture of kids in cages is not even from the right year or something. As if that changes the fact that that's happening right now. I mean, if you want to obsess over semantics, you're free to. But that doesn't change that there were forced abortions and there were, child separation, And here's the thing, guys. Here is the truth. Conservatives have moved on about the abuses in the border. They do not care. Not one iota. They do not care. They do not give a single crap. They've rationalized it in their head, and they've moved on months ago. And this is the ultimate proof. They use this as a gotcha against the left. They use this as a gotcha against Pedro Pascal. And they knew that their conservative base wouldn't care that they'd be reminded about the child separation at the border, the forced hysterectomies, the forced abortions. They didn't care. So yeah, to me, it's the supreme irony, really. It's the supreme irony, because Gina Carano was posting about how conservatives are the ones being seen as less than human, being treated as Jews in the run-up to the Holocaust, when in reality, it's them who sees the asylum seekers as less than human. And to me, that's just a sad fact of the situation. And I'm just going to do one final take on this. If you really want to talk about cancel culture, if you really want to talk about it, let's talk about the storm, okay? What's going to happen to Democrats if the storm happens? I think they want to cancel us permanently. They want to cancel Obama permanently, Clinton permanently. I think they want to cancel us like I showed how they canceled Julius Caesar. So let's not get it twisted. We know what you're about. We're the party of universal health care. We're the party of ending child separation at the border. That's why Biden has started a task force to undo the damage, or at least attempt to undo the damage that Trump did. And what are you the party of? You're the party of outrage. You're the party of propaganda, of misinformation, of lies about the election. But most importantly, you're the party of the storm. And we all know how that storm would play out in your head if only you had the power to. So I'll say it again. When they have control of the line, they're way more egregious about it than we are. The last time, they just blackballed the communists. They canceled the Dixie Chicks. But if they ever get it again, I think that if they cancel us, it's going to be rather permanent. So let's make sure that doesn't happen, guys. Anyways, thanks for watching my video. I put a lot of work and effort into it. I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe, but if not, you can be a stingy piece of crap, and that's fine. I love you anyway. Have a good night. This is JP Saga signing out.